The message comes in, the yes, the opportunity, the thing you have been waiting for. And for 1 second, just one, something in your chest opens up. You read it again to make sure it is real. Maybe you even smile. Then something else moves in, tension. Not because anything went wrong, not because the news is bad, but because it does not feel the way it should. Instead of joy, there is this strange, quiet caution. Instead of relief, there is suspicion. Instead of excitement, there is that tight, familiar feeling that something must be off. And the worst part? You know you should be happy. That is what makes it so confusing. On paper, this is exactly what people wait for. A door opening, progress, approval, something finally going your way. And still, part of you steps back from it, waiting to see what the catch is. If that has ever happened to you, you are not broken, and you are not alone. Here is what is actually going on. A lot of people know how to handle bad news. They know how to brace for disappointment, lower expectations, carry pressure, and keep functioning when things fall apart. They have practiced that their entire lives, quietly, without even realizing it. But when something genuinely goes well, there is no familiar script, no problem to solve, no immediate threat to organize around. Just the sudden arrival of something you wanted, and that can feel completely destabilizing. Because your body has spent years learning that hope is dangerous. Because here is the thing about hope. The moment something good becomes real, loss becomes real too. Now there is something to ruin, something to be taken away. So instead of relaxing, your mind starts scanning forward. What if it falls through? What if I mess it up? What if something bad comes right after this? That is not pessimism. That is a nervous system that has learned not to trust relief too quickly. For some people, this started early. Good moments were followed by instability. Kindness came with conditions. Calm never lasted. If that is the emotional pattern you grew up inside, then good news does not arrive clean. It arrives carrying history. You may not even think this consciously. You just feel it. Someone tells you something wonderful, and part of you tightens. A quiet inner voice says, "Do not get too excited. Do not believe it too fast. Do not let it mean too much." That voice is not trying to ruin your life. It is trying to protect you from the crash. It learned that trusting good things and then watching them disappear is one of the most painful things a person can experience. So it decided to skip the trusting part entirely, to stay in control, to never be caught off guard by hope again. That is when it hits you. You are not guarding against happiness. You are guarding against the humiliation of believing in it and then losing it. But there is another layer. Sometimes good news feels wrong because it clashes with who you think you are. If you have spent years as the one who struggles, the one who barely holds things together, the one who gets close but never all the way there, then positive change creates friction. Not because you want to stay stuck, but because the mind gets attached to familiar roles, even painful ones. If life has taught you to expect difficulty, then good news can feel almost out of character. So instead of thinking finally, you think, really? For me? That question is more revealing than it looks, because buried inside it is something most people never say out loud. Do I actually deserve this? Or am I going to have to pay for it somehow? A lot of people are far more comfortable earning through struggle than receiving through grace. If something good follows exhaustion and sacrifice, they can accept it. But if something simply goes well, if someone is kind, if luck leans their direction, they get uneasy. Because ease feels suspicious. Difficulty makes sense. Difficulty fits the map. Goodness starts to feel like a clerical error. And then there are the people who do not even reject good news. They just cannot feel it yet. The message comes in. The situation changes. The yes arrives. And instead of excitement, there is just nothing. A strange blankness, numbness. Then hours later, sometimes days later, the feeling finally catches up. That does not always mean something is wrong with you. Sometimes it just means your system processes safety more slowly than it processes threat. Threat gets instant access. Goodness has to wait at the door while your mind checks whether it is safe. This happens a lot when someone has been under strain for a long time. When your baseline is fatigue, anxiety, or quiet disappointment. Even the best news lands inside a body that no longer knows how to turn toward joy easily. You understand the good news, you process it intellectually, but emotionally, you feel almost nothing at first. Not because you are ungrateful, because you are exhausted. Joy requires something from you. It asks you to open up, soften, and receive. And when you have been in survival mode, that kind of opening can feel harder than staying guarded. Here is the part that people rarely talk about. Sometimes good news hurts because it creates contrast. If you have been barely coping, one genuinely positive moment can suddenly show you how dark everything else has felt. One flicker of real possibility exposes how long you have been carrying a version of yourself that expected nothing good. The good news is real. The opportunity is real. But the moment also reveals how unfamiliar goodness has become, like warmth returning to something that has been cold for too long. And then there is guilt. Some people struggle to feel happy because happiness feels disloyal to the harder parts of their life, to people around them who are still struggling, to the grief still sitting somewhere in the background. Can I really feel good about this when everything else is still unresolved? So the mind splits. One part wants to let this in. Another part says not yet. And joy drains out before it gets the chance to live in you. Over time, a pattern forms. Good news arrives. And almost instantly, the mind jumps to caution, minimization, analysis, delay, guilt, or future threat. The good thing gets processed, but not enjoyed. That is the real loss. Not that you cannot recognize what is good. You can, but you cannot rest in it. Resting in good news is harder than it sounds. It means letting relief be relief before turning it into a responsibility. It means allowing a good moment to exist without interrogating it to death. It means admitting, even for a moment, that something is going right without bracing for the moment it stops. That can feel deeply unnatural if your mind has learned that vigilance is safer than joy. So if good news feels wrong to you, here is what it actually means. It means your system has spent too long associating hope with risk. It means you trust disappointment more than relief, because disappointment has been the more reliable guest. It means that receiving something good and letting it matter, that touches a vulnerable place you learn to keep closed. And it may simply mean that your mind is late to safety, late to trust, late to the part where something good is allowed to be real. That does not make you negative. It does not make you broken. It makes you shaped by experience. Some people hear good news and celebrate immediately. Others brace first, believe it later. Sometimes much later. Both are human. But here is the quiet shift that changes things. Just noticing the pattern is enough to start loosening it. Not forcing yourself to feel joy faster. Not pretending the caution is not there. Just recognizing, oh, this is the thing I do. And giving yourself a moment before the guard goes up. Because you are allowed to let good things land. Even you. If this felt familiar, share it with someone who needs to hear it right now. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do for someone is show them they are not alone in how they feel. And drop a comment below. When good news arrives, what hits you first? Suspicion, numbness, guilt, or the fear it will not last? I read every single one. If you want more honest, quiet breakdowns of the patterns people live with, but never say out loud, subscribe. New video every week.